Before we get started, I'd like to do some welcomes and introductions. I'd like to start with the ANC Commissioner who's joined us.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michael Schenkel. I'm the ANC Commissioner for 2C01, which is where the library is located and into Chinatown. So it incorporates the Capital One Arena. So I'd like to thank everyone for being here tonight and just appreciate your input into the development of plans, because constituent input is extremely important in everything that we do. So thank you all for participating this evening.
And I couldn't agree more with the comments that the Commissioner made. This works only with your input, feedback, your thoughts, and your information. We can only craft a great TOPP, you'll hear me use that acronym throughout, with your guidance. Without it, it's not even worth putting it on paper. So with that said, we also have some members from DDOT. We have one of our traffic control officers. You'd like to stand up and say hello? Thank you, Ms. Brown. And before we get to our partners at DPW, I do want to note something. There is no more important job at DDOT than the job our traffic control officers and safety techs do every single day, in good weather and bad, in intersections, helping people navigate a complex traffic network and do so safely. So thank you very much, Mr. Brown. With that said, we have two representatives from the Department of Public Works.
Good afternoon, Preston Moore, Branch Manager for DPW Parking Enforcement.
Good afternoon, David Wooden, Supervisor for Parking Enforcement.
Thank you very much. And I do want to note something about our partners at the Department of Public Works, including Melvin, who has just shown up. There is no office in the district government that if they don't do their job, people are more upset with, and that's trash collection. And there's no office in the district government that people, when they do their job, they are more upset with, and that's parking enforcement. So I really respect and appreciate what the Department of Public Works does every day, because the network works because of the work they do every day on all the streets in the District of Columbia. Thank you. And we have one more team member from Public Works. I stalled a little bit for you to be able to introduce yourself. Did I time that well? I timed that well.
Good evening, everyone. Melvin Smith, Department of Public Works. I work in the Office of the Director. I do a lot of special initiatives on behalf of DPW, working with DDOT and other great agencies in the city.
Thank you. And I do not know, you don't sleep, do you? Do you just like recharge for 15 minutes at around 3:45 in the morning? And okay. And with that said, I don't know, do we have any representatives from Metropolitan Police Department? Okay. So we also have other partners who are working with us on this project. We have the Department of For-Hire Vehicles, and we also have the Metropolitan Police Department. All of us work together to support the creation of transportation operations and parking plans. So that helps kind of to frame why we're here. So why are we here? We're here to talk about a transportation operation and parking plan that we'll need to implement here at Capital One Arena and the surrounding environment to make sure that people are able to come to games, come to work, come home, live their lives in this area safely and efficiently with a transportation network that is adjusted and adapted to the different needs and different uses. So you can see what we're talking about in terms of its purpose. We really do want to minimize impacts, right? We want to make it as intuitive and as fluid as possible so that people are able to get to and from where they need to go on a timely basis and safely. We also want to provide travel options. We want to make sure people are utilizing multimodal transit, especially Metro Rail and Metro Bus, as much as possible. And we want to delineate street closures and other restrictions so people are aware of how they can get around and navigate both to and from the area, as well as around the area. And we also want to reduce pedestrian vehicle conflicts and manage pickup and drop off from rideshare vehicles. I just want to be clear, this is not going to be me talking a lot. It's going to be me kind of giving an overview. And then from that, we're going to want your feedback and input, both through a Q&A session, as well as you'll see around the room. We have a variety of maps and boards written up. They have headings at the top. You'll learn more about that later. And we'd like you to go around and write comments, information, feedback that we can use to help create a really great TOPP. So with that said, where are we in the TOPP effort? Well, we are in the, actually in the third of 4 stages. So we have documented existing arena operations, which is the first part, is what are we adapting to? The second part is developing a draft TOPP. We have a kind of a fundamental outline for a TOPP, but it has to adapt to the specific purpose and area that it's being used for. And now we are in the middle of stakeholder engagement. We've done internal stakeholder engagement. We've heard from our partners at Department of Public Works. We've talked internally at DDOT. We've talked with for-hire vehicles, Metropolitan Police Department, and with Monumental Sports and Entertainment. And we will do multiple touch points with the public, including this, an online survey, and also a further meeting later in the year where we'll be coming back to you and hearing from you, as well as giving you information on the TOPP at that point. And then from there, we will have a formal and finalized TOPP. So the first thing is to know what we're working with, which is what's the event schedule for the arena. And then we also have our transportation network and safety, our travel modes, parking and curbside management, and other. And I believe that matches the information you'll see on the table, on the walls around you. So other than the event schedule, which unless you are looking to actually rent out Capital One Arena, that's a fixed item. But all the others are the items that we'll be adapting. So with that said, I think it's the right time for the next slide. And I believe I'm turning it over to our good friends at Capital One Arena. Jordan Silverman is with us. You'll need to talk into a microphone so that the public can see you, which you can just hit the, perfect.
Just wanted to say thank you, first of all. We've been operating. Hear me now? Or maybe this isn't. Can you guys hear me now? Online? All right.
Yes.
So I will start from the top. I want to thank DDOT for putting this all together. It was a vitally important part of our decision in staying downtown, and our commitment for another 25 years to the area. We've been partners with the city for coming on 27 years at Cap One. There's been a lot of work, and I look at the people in the room today, and all the stakeholders that are involved in getting fans to and from our building safely and delivering our events. And I'm appreciative of all the effort. What we're trying to do is to tie it all together and make it all make sense so that it is a collective effort, strategic and planned and thoughtful, so that as we have events, we're not just getting people in and out of our building safely, efficiently, but we're also being good neighbors. And the point I was getting at is, Ted is committed to downtown DC and the redevelopment. And part of that is the people that live and work here and the businesses that operate and thrive in this area. And we want to make sure that we're helping to lift those up. And part of that is getting people in and out and safely from restaurant to restaurant, in and out of their residences in a safe and efficient manner. And we bring a lot of people in, over 2 million people a year. We want them to treat the neighborhood with respect as they come through, and part of that is the travel path. So everybody's pretty familiar with our event schedule. We're a 20,000 seat venue. We're doing 200 plus events a year. And the hope is always to do more than that, with Caps and Wizards playing into the summer months. So between Wizards, Capitals, Hoyas, and I would even put the concert business as our third anchor tenant. We're doing upwards of 60 concerts annually. We're a busy building, and it takes a lot of commitment from all these city groups and to make sure that we deliver a safe experience. So appreciate all the effort and hearing your feedback and how we can partner together to make this as great as it can be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I also want to note we have several other team members from Monumental Sports and Entertainment with us here today as well. So they are here to help gather feedback, hear from you, and help take that back and incorporate it into how they plan their events as well. So where does it start? It starts with the TOPP boundary. So you'll see that initial area that's marked with a dotted line. That's the core traffic network that's impacted by transportation operations and parking during event days. You'll also see that we've put a square around the intersection at 3rd and Indiana. That is because that is an area where a lot of people travel to get onto 395 and head south to Virginia. Why they live in Virginia, I have no idea. As a native Washingtonian, it doesn't make sense to me, but there are people who do that. So, and so with that said, this gives you an idea of the fundamental area that we're working with. You'll see that map at each of the stations around the room. This is the area that we're talking about, but don't be limited to this. If there's something else you wanted to point out or something else you wanted to bring to our attention that's not on the map, please feel free to make notes about that. We look forward to having that. I do want to note before we go to, this actually is going to be great because I'm about to talk about personnel. So what is DDOT doing? DDOT is managing traffic flow, whether that's through signals, whether that's through our traffic control officers and safety techs, whether it's through the different operations that we've set up and established curbside. We're helping to manage traffic flow. What is Department of Public Works doing? They are removing and relocating illegally parked vehicles and going through parking enforcement so the traffic network isn't bottled up and impeded by people who are not parked or not doing what they're supposed to do. The Department of For-Hire Vehicles is also quite active. They will be managing and monitoring for-hire vehicle operations. That includes both taxi cabs as well as Lyft, Uber, and other types of shared vehicles. And then Monumental Sports and Entertainment does event operations. They manage the Lexus parking garage, and they also support wayfinding so people know where they're going and how to get there. So let's talk about the first item, transportation network and safety. So the first part for transportation network and safety is what you'll see is these are all the signalized intersections identified obviously with a signal. What you'll note is that for pre-event times, we'll be closing F Street in front of the stadium, in front of the arena, which we already do. And when I say we, I mean them. So just to be clear, the actual closure itself is implemented by Monumental Sports and Entertainment. They've received permission to do so, and they coordinate with the Metropolitan Police Department. We have a representative here tonight from MPD, and they also work with our safety techs and our traffic operations team to ensure that the closure occurs appropriately and in a timely basis. It'll be a bit more structured moving forward from here. You'll also see on the right side what we do at the end of the event. And you can see that at the end of the event, it's a much more substantial footprint. So for example, you'll see that 7th Street is closed. You'll see that 6th Street is closed immediately to either side of the stadium. That is done because when people come to the arena, and I apologize, I keep saying stadium and I do mean arena when I say that, so I do apologize. I'll do my best to remember arena. But when people are coming to the arena, they're doing so on their own schedule. As long as they're there roughly when puck drops or when tip-off occurs, then they've gotten to where they need to be on time. And they'll come in, they come from work, or they go and have a meal, and then they get to the arena. But then at the end of the event, after they hoist the Stanley Cup and the team has taken their victory lap, everybody leaves. So everybody's leaving at approximately the same time, and that's what causes a much more substantial impact on the network. As a result, we do more substantial closures. We still have F Street closed, but the items on 6th and 7th, you'll see that we've limited eastbound traffic coming on G Street and F Street to the arena area. And we've done the same for westbound traffic on the east side to Capital One Arena. In addition, we set up circumstances where, for example, there are cones set up here that limit people's ability to make turns at 6th and G. That facilitates traffic flow through, as well as operations into the garage. Next slide. Here are some pictures of the area being set up in advance of an event. You'll see MPD has their cruiser here. You'll see these are called Thomas barriers. These are actually, this is a really amazing invention. What they do is they have poles or posts inside. They're steel, essentially steel jersey barriers. There are posts inside that can be cranked down, which lifts the barrier up off the ground. There are wheels, and then they can be wheeled. Two people easily move it into place. There are pins that you can see on the edges on both sides that fit into holes that have been drilled into the ground, and they place them there. They are actually MUTCD compliant. Sorry. Does everybody here know MUTCD? Of course we don't. That stands for the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So there's a variety of standards. These meet these standards, and they're part of what we do to ensure the safety of the traveling public when we set barriers out into public space. Next slide. Right, and so here's what's happening on the closed portion of F Street. You see a lot of people gathering. You're quite familiar with this as neighbors. We know that you are. You'll see that there's a lot of foot traffic, a lot of people focusing on where they're going and why they're getting there and talking to their friends and meeting up. So they're not really paying as close attention to the traffic network. One of the important reasons why we want to make sure the area is closed, as well as the queues that will appear getting people into and out of the stadium. Arena, Matthew, the arena, correct. Okay, and you can see how substantial the traffic is. We have a lot of people here. This is 7th Street at G. You'll see a lot of people waiting to come over to the arena. We have a lot of people who we need to get through there quickly, and you'll see our traffic control officer is posted right there. Next slide. So how are they getting to the arena? What's bringing them to that area? Well, there are multiple types of travel modes. So first, we note that there's a tremendous amount of transit available to people. And one of our important goals is to get people to use transit more and more frequently to get to the Capital One Arena. What you'll see is that obviously, as you well know, red, green, and yellow line all actually have an entrance exit at the stadium, arena itself. And it's a very short walk from Metro Center to get to Capital One Arena. So all modes of Metro Rail are available. Plus, you also see that there's a lot of bus lines that serve this area. So people are encouraged to use transit to get to the stadium. It's probably the most efficient way. It's the simplest way. It's the safest. I shouldn't say safest, but it's a safe way to get there. I don't want to judge one mode of travel over another for safety. Next slide. This is a typical walking routes for pedestrians who are coming to the area. So if they're coming from Metro, they're going to be coming from the west off of Metro Center. Obviously, if they're in the Metro itself on red, green, or yellow line, they'll be coming out of Capital One. But we also have people who are coming in and out of Judiciary Square for their own personal reasons. So these are a variety of ways that pedestrians are getting there. So we have transit, and we have pedestrians. Next slide.
Just one thing I want to add is that we are in the process of surveying all of our fans too. So we've sent out a survey last week to collect data that will help, provide insight to DDOT as they establish this plan. So I think we have 5,000 responses so far. So we're going to have a good sample size to be able to pull from and know how our fans are arriving. I know some of the tendencies just based on how it's played out over the course of the history of the arena, but it'd be good to have the factual information that we're going to provide to DDOT that will help source all of this.
Yes, data drives decisions. And the more data we're able to gather, the more data we're able to analyze, the better our transportation operations and parking plan will be. And you are data for us. You have lived experiences that we need to hear and that will help inform what we're doing. So please, we do need your feedback, and we really appreciate your time. Here are areas where there are bike share and scooters. Specifically, you'll see that these are Capital Bike Share docking stations. So we have a host of them around the arena, making it available for people as a way to get to and from Capital One. Next slide. So people have gotten here, but what's the last way people get here? Driving cars. So we have a for-hire vehicle and taxi stand plan. This was what we initially deployed for the playoff run that the Capitals had this past year. You'll see that we took a 160-foot stretch on the north side of G Street between 8th and 9th, and a 185 stretch of G Street between 7th and 8th. The yellow 7th and 8th section was for taxi cabs, hence yellow on the plan. And then the blue section between 8th and 9th was for for-hire vehicles, Uber, Lyfts, et cetera. But that was a preliminary plan. That was a pilot just to see how it worked. It can be informed by where people are coming from. So also outreach with our shared vehicle partners will be an important component of the TOPP, as well as the experience of all of the people throughout the city who are working there, such as our Metropolitan Police Department partners, our Department of For-Hire Vehicle partners, most especially for this particular component, as well as DPW and our own team. So here is where all of our parking, you can tell, this is where all the parking is metered across the District of Columbia, well, I shouldn't say across, but in the area of the TOPP that we're looking for. This is a performance parking zone, meaning that the parking rates adapt. They go from $1 an hour up to $7 an hour based on location and time of day. I do know that we have comments coming in the chat, which is great. We'll be taking questions and having comments immediately after this, and then we'll ask everybody to help work on the feedback on the panels around the wall. Okay. Also, people are using private garages. And here is a map showing all the private garages in the area. You can see that there's nearly 24 of them. They have large capacity. They can handle a lot of vehicles coming into and out of the area. We do incorporate that into our TOPP as well, because that's both parking and transportation related. Next slide. And we have the Lexus garage and loading dock here for Capital One Arena. This is a primary way for people who are coming to the arena who have, let's just say, reserved parking, or there's parking available. They can come in off of 6th Street. If you remember the slide I showed a few slides ago, you'll see that the routing on 6th Street is adapted so that we don't have people trying to turn left, for example, into the garage off of northbound 6th Street, because that would create a traffic impediment, and it also would lead to potential accidents when there's a lot of people coming to that area and a lot of people trying to get in both on foot and by car. Okay, so that's the fundamental components of a transportation operation and parking plan and the specific information related to this area. That's the framework we're going to be working from, but all of that requires your input and feedback. Before we get into the actual Q&A part and we do the open house, I would like to note that we have been joined by a few other partners who I'm now going to ask to introduce themselves, which they did not know they were going to do, but now they do. So we have a representative from the For-Hire Vehicle Office. Oh, you need to speak in the microphone.
Okay.
Oh, you can give that to the officer in the back.
Hi, good evening. I'm Deputy Chief Flood. I'm with the Department for Hired Vehicles.
Sorry.
I am responsible for the day-to-day operations of our enforcement department. And I was going to say something else, but actually for everybody that's here, just as an FYI, it's my last week with DFHV. I'll be transitioning to DLCP, but I do have a colleague that will be taking the torch from me, and he'll be here for any other meetings going forward.
Thank you. And we know that Chief Flood's been involved in all of this. What I do want to note is that when he used the alphabet soup of DLCP, that means he's going to the Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection. Did anybody have that on their bingo card? Okay. And then we have an officer.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Isla Wiggins with the Special Operations Division of the Metropolitan Police Department. I'm in charge of the Planning and Logistics section, and my primary duty is to coordinate the staffing for the Metropolitan Police Department for the Capital One Arena events.
Thank you. And then if you'll hand the microphone to the gentleman to your left.
Good afternoon. My name is Tion Jones. I'm also part of the Department of Transportation, managing the Curbside Management Division.
Thank you. So that's the team. We're excited to hear from you. So at this point, if we have a few questions that have already built up in the chat, why don't we go to those? And then, Commissioner, if you don't mind making sure we can get the microphone to people. Thank you.
So one question that came in through the chat while you're speaking was, can you hear me?
You might have to speak a little louder, Holly.
So one question in the chat that came in while you were speaking, Matthew, was, does for-hire vehicles include micromobility, scooters, and mopeds?
I don't believe the Department of For-Hire Vehicles regulates them, but yes, they are part of our TOPP consideration. And we do have relationships with those providers. That's a great question. Thank you.
That I think is all the questions in the chat for now.
Okay, great. To the people who are here. Yes, sir. And you'll need to speak into the microphone, but I know you're prepared for that.
Yeah, hi, a great presentation. I'm Howard Marks. I'm the Vice President of the Residents at Gallery Place Condominium Association. We're directly north of the Capital One Arena. We have 192 units. We have about 300 people that live in our building. And also we have a commercial garage that's operated by Colonial, which is separate from our operation, but many of our residents use that garage daily, including my wife and I. Okay, so clearly there are great concerns from your presentation. I don't know where to begin, and I don't want to hog the floor because I could probably be on this microphone for another 10 minutes, but I'll just give you the highlights and then maybe we could drill down later to see how we can resolve some of these issues. The first one is blocking 7th and 6th Streets is really a no-starter for us. We depend on deliveries in our building, whether it's food deliveries, whether it's takeout deliveries, takeout taxi, for example. We have people who leave from our building with shared ride services like Uber and Lyft. It would really be devastating. It would be difficult. And we would have a rebellion on our hands from the 300 people who live in our building. Clearly, especially blocking 7th Street is really a very serious issue for us. Also, what you said on 6th Street, we had a situation last year where cones were put out in the yellow strip between the 6th, between G and H, for example, as you mentioned, to prevent northbound traffic from crossing into the Lexus garage you mentioned, but also people in our building were forbidden to go into our garage. And people coming from points south and either forced to do an illegal U-turn or going around the block so they could then be facing southbound. And this is really a serious issue for us. And we did have a meeting, an ANC meeting here. And Michael knows every month there are representatives from the 1st District and the 2nd District. So you were all in the 1st District in the Cap One Arena. And they said that they would talk to the officers and make sure that was not enforced. Not enforced. And we thank the police for doing that. So the main two issues is blocking 7th Street for any amount of time is really, and I don't even have to talk about what's going to happen to Metro buses. We have it's one of the most traveled, intersected corner of 7th and H, taking the 70 series buses northbound. What are these people going to do? I mean, I could go on and on, but I think for starters, blocking of 7th Street and blocking of 6th Street are very serious issues for us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the comment. And again, remember, this is a developing document, and so appreciate that feedback. Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Okay.
Hey, I'm DK. First, I feel your pain. It seems like you have a monumental task.
Thank you. Very well played. Thank you.
Yeah. Is that on the record? No, anyway. No, so if you go back to that travel modes for hire vehicles and taxi slide, it's just.
That one.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So that yellow portion there, I don't know how you're going to develop it, but from what I observed, people didn't really know that that's a drop-off area. So I monitored it the whole time, the couple times that you did it. Not one ride share stopped or picked up or taxi, right? What I did observe, though, was that corner is the busiest corner for business.
Just to be clear,
Yes, sir.
Which corner? Because there's 3.
7th and G, you see the yellow
Yep.
taxi stand zone?
Yep.
We turned that into a taxi stand zone. That is right in front of Chick-fil-A and Dos Toros, the busiest third-party area in all of Chinatown. It created complete havoc. Also, there's that whole challenge of okay, Uber drivers can stop, but Uber Eats are not allowed to stop. So that became kind of an issue too. So I would recommend just revisiting that. And I did speak with all the business owners on 7th Street as well, and they kind of felt the same.
No, thank you. And that, it was as I noted earlier, it was a pilot. We wanted and we did do it, I would say, with a relatively truncated timeline. And just appreciate the feedback to know how it might have been enhanced, better messaging most especially. Okay. Yes, sir. I'm assuming people are able to hear me because I hear myself right. I just talk loud. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm Casey, I live in the Penn Quarter area. One of the things I've noticed before a concert especially is when there's a large group of people waiting to get in, sometimes if you go to one of the maps on there, sometimes you'll see a line of people going all the way down to, like on 7th, going all the way down to D, and it blocks, that's fine. It'll block the sidewalk altogether, and it'll require, if you're not going to the concert or to the arena, walking on the street to get passed by. So just wanted to make that comment.
No, thank you. I appreciate that, because one of the other components, as I mentioned, and as we were talking about with Jordan from MSC, is their operations. And so it's important. I know that I'm going to speak for you, Jordan, and if I'm wrong, let me know. You want to get people in there as quickly as possible. So with that said, yeah. Right, and that goes to another part, which also speaks, sir, to what you were talking about for 6th and 7th Street, and it also goes to the for-hire vehicle and taxi cab stands, which is messaging and consistency in operations. That gives people greater confidence in how they're getting there or how they're avoiding the areas that they want to not get caught in. So as a result, that's an important component of the TOPP, which then also ties to how far up the cones go for, et cetera. Thank you. Anything else? Anything we have somebody on the chat.
Thank you. So in the chat, there's a question from Penny asking, will Monumental Sports consider making the parking garage available during non-event days so that there will be more parking available for visitors coming to Chinatown?
I think it's a short answer. It's yes, and it is available today on non-event days.
That was quick.
Emergency vehicles. So one of your slides there, you had an ambulance, EMS ambulance on the west side of 7th, just north of G Street. My wife's life was saved in 2016 because an ambulance was dispatched from the fire station at the corner of 6th and F, was able to make it to our condo in 5 minutes, got her to Howard University Hospital, where they saved her life. I look at this plan here and I say, hopefully that will never happen to anyone, but it can and it does. What about emergency vehicles? Where's the fire department here tonight to discuss this? Thank you.
I appreciate that. So we do coordinate with Fire EMS. We've talked to them about this plan as well. We wanted to speak more directly to transportation operations and parking, but to your point about emergency access, you're absolutely right. If it's not going to work for emergency response, it's not going to work, because emergency response needs to be able to get in and out very quickly. Remember, I mentioned the TOPP barriers. One of the important components of those is that they can be easily removed. So even if they're blocking the roadway for travel, one of them can be easily moved. So a fire lane is created and fire trucks can respond. You're absolutely right.
Sure. The barriers themselves are only filling up 2/3 of the street right now. There's a police vehicle that's parked at that last section so that you can always have fire egress. And I think any plan that is contemplated, I think what we are sharing is what is being done today. And there are people in vehicles that are stopping vehicular traffic right now so that they can move out of the way if there's a fire truck that needs to, or ambulance that needs to respond. So that is in play today.
To that point, can you go to the slide that showed pre and post closures? So one of the things I didn't note was how the closure occurs. If you'll see this, you'll see that anything that has a blue shield indicates that that's where an MPD officer is stationed in relation to the closure. And you'll see that, for example, on 6th Street and 7th Street, both north and south, the closure is effectuated through a vehicle with a person who can easily move it. Thank you.
Yeah, speaking of data driving decisions, what metrics or statistics are you looking at to determine the effectiveness of these plans when they go into effect?
Well, we want to start with the data gathering, and that will help us inform what we would be looking for results. But I don't want to sit here and say this is what we're going to be measuring for in the future until we really have done a full gather.
Another person in the chat that we're going to try and you speak.
Hello. Can people hear me by any
Yes,
chance?
we can.
All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity and also the effort of DDOT and TOPP for helping us constituents. I live also, as well as Howard Marks, I also live in Gallery Place, residences at Gallery Place. I live here with my wife. I just wanted to also ask about if DDOT and TOPP are able to also audit some of the private garage or private parking garage that supply parking for patrons going to the arena. Especially talking about the Colonial Gallery Place parking garage, that it's also, from my perspective, or I might be wrong, but I think it's true that it's probably the most used parking garage for events taking place in the arena. This parking garage has no security in place, no surveillance, no phone signal, which makes a blind spot for many emergency situations, not only in regards to safety, but also, since we touched the topic about also health emergency situations, it's also concerning, not only for us as residents in this garage, but also I believe for all the patrons, all the people that will potentially be attending to any event in Capital One Arena. I know there's a commercial side for our building that owns the grounds of the garage, but at the same time, I feel that there should be some type of public scrutiny on this process, because it is also very prone to all these emergency situations and no contingency plan to help in those situations. So I wonder, is there anything that you're planning on doing about this situation?
Well, thank you for the question. And I kind of want to separate out two of the issues that you raised or that I heard in what you had said. The first is, are we canvassing those garages? The answer is yes. That is part of the data that we need to make sure we have in order to drive an effective decision on what the TOPP will incorporate. And it is, as you noted, a location, many of the garages, or certainly some of the garages, are popular locations for people coming to the events at the arena, not the stadium, the arena. I nailed it that time. To your other point, though, you were talking about the security physically on site at the garage. There is a point at which our TOPP ends and private responsibility begins, and that candidly will be one of them. We certainly are not in a position to direct and mandate the security procedures, the connectivity, and other items at parking garages. We will certainly ensure that they are aware of the concerns that have been raised, and we'll make a note that it's important for them to be prudent about their security planning. But in the end, ultimately, the TOPP ends where the private property begins. Anything else from the chat? Okay, anything else in the room? All right. Well, this has been very helpful as feedback. I do want to note we have some team members who are here in support of the work that we're doing before we turn it over to having you go to the panels on the wall and write out notes. So from the District Department of Transportation, we have two team members who are here, Kelly Zhang Olson and Christy Fosser from our community engagement team. Kelly is in our traffic operations team, though she was previously in our community engagement team. So, and in addition, we have some representatives from Sam Schwartz. They are a consultant who are supporting us in creating the TOPP. I'll have their team lead introduce them.
Hi, good evening. I'm Shomo Dev with Sam Schwartz, and we are helping DDOT with the TOPP process. And from the Sam Schwartz team, we have Holly Chase and Vinay Varadarajan.
Thank you so much. Okay, so with that said, that concludes the presentation portion and the Q&A portion for today. Please know that you will always be able to give us feedback. I believe we have a QR code that people can scan. Am I wrong? I'm probably wrong. There we go. I was right. We have a QR code that people can scan. What do they get if they scan this? Is that to the survey? Is that? Yeah, so this scan will give you access to the survey that we have. This is not a one-time survey and you're done. It's a feedback loop. We really do want as much information from you as possible to help inform the decisions that we're making and the plan that we ultimately finalize and publish. In addition, we do have around the room the maps and the boards on which to write that I noted. So we have travel modes directly in front of me. We have parking and curbside management immediately in the middle. And then I can't read that because my eyesight, I'm old. Transportation network and safety. And then we also have a catch-all over here for other, in case you wanted to add anything into, if there's something we didn't cover, something you wanted us to consider, something that comes to mind for you. Please feel free, and this is not a one-time and we're done. This is a feedback, as I said, a feedback loop. And we really do want to learn more and more from you about what you're experiencing. For example, the life safety element that you were raising is important. The private safety element, sir, that you raised online is important. Being able to get access to where you need to go, impacts to businesses, and ultimately to the community are what we're here for. And we want to make sure we're minimizing to the greatest extent possible and making the event experience as positive, both externally as well as for people traveling to and through the area. So we do have, I think we have markers, we have Post-it notes, we have the material up. Kelly, do you want to, am I covering it? No, go ahead, because I'm not. She's much better at this than I am.
So we're going to have about 15 to 20 minutes. You can walk around the meeting room, and there are 4 stations, as Matthew mentioned. Feel free to use a sticky note. We can provide put it on a specific location, or any comments will be appreciated. And then after 15 minutes, we're going to come back and just talk about this general, heard from you. Virtual attendees, I will be managing virtual attendees. We can talk virtually. So we're going to mute ourselves to the meeting room. everybody can just talk. Also, you government employees to talk about
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. everybody's time and attention. We have your notes off the boards. We heard some reiteration of the issues that were raised with us earlier. The focus on making sure that for-hire vehicles and taxis are properly managed, which includes making sure that they have access both to the patrons that they're serving, and the businesses that they're picking up from. We heard the points related to making sure that the area is well lit. We heard comments related to making sure that the closures do not impact life safety. A real reiteration and also a focus on the data and making sure that we've got good metrics so we can measure good outcomes and make any adjustments as needed. So I really want to thank the public for coming out. Ultimately, this is your community, this is your neighborhood, and as we often remind ourselves at the department, whatever we are working on is directly impacting the lives of the people in the community or the area where we're working. And we always want to keep that front of mind as we're making our decisions. I want to thank Monumental Sports and Entertainment for their partnership in today's meeting, coming out and having a team together. I want to thank the Metropolitan Police Department, the Department of For-Hire Vehicles, though I think he's already left, Department of Public Works for coming out. I want to thank all of our team members at DDOT for coming out, Sam Schwartz, also for attending, and especially I want to thank the commissioner for co-hosting with us today. Really appreciate your time and effort on this. Thank you. So the QR code, if you need to take a picture of it, please do. We'll leave it up until you all skedaddle. But thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it. Have a great night. Oh, and don't forget to vote if it's still open. Okay.
40 minutes.